Hello and welcome to the first non-introductory episode of the AnOtakuInJapan podcast, where I attempt to deliver you, the listener and or viewer, with information about all things Japanese in digestible, bite-sized servings. Now, I hope this podcast will either supplement your current knowledge, teach you something new, or act as a platform for you to launch your own studies and research from. And now, let us jump right in to the first tale to be told, the tragic tale of the Byakkotai 20. But before we can begin, we must first understand the context and the time in which this story takes place. Thus, we must begin with the emperor and the shogun. Now, this is not exhaustive and will be covered in more detail in a later episode. I just feel that for us to really understand and grasp this story, a little bit of history and a little bit of context is required. So, at the time this story takes place, power within Japan was split between the emperor, who was seen as a divine ruler and even a god, and the shogun, who led Japan's military forces. In the years leading up to the end of the Edo period and the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, civil war broke out between those that were loyal to the Tokugawa shogunate and those that were loyal to the emperor. This war, known as the Boshin War, took place between 1868 and 1869 and pretty much spanned the entirety of Japan, as famous battles were fought all over Japan as the imperial forces pushed the shogunate forces back from Kyoto all the way to Hokkaido. Now, this story, the tragic tale of the Byakkotai 20, takes place during one of those famous battles, the battle for Aizu. Now, if you don't know where Aizu is a city located in the western part of Fukushima Prefecture. Now, the imperial forces laid siege to Aizu Wakamatsu Castle, known in Japanese as Tsuruga-jo, and for an entire month, they laid siege before the forces of Aizu finally conceded defeat and the lord of Aizu, Katamori Matsudaira, surrendered to the imperial forces. The tragedy of the Byakkotai takes place during this battle. Now, the forces of Aizu were split into 4 different divisions, with the Byakkotai, or White Tiger Brigade as they are known in English, comprising of the youngest of the soldiers, the sons of samurai, ranging from 14 to 18 years old. Now, during the battle for Tsuruga-jo, 20 members of the Byakkotai were actually separated from the rest of their division after one of the battles, the battle for Tonoguchihara. And these 20 members, they escaped through a tunnel to Mt Iimori. Now, from Mt Iimori, most of Aizu could be seen. The geography of Aizu, if you have never been, is a very flat plain city surrounded by mountains. And then from these mountains, you have a very, very good view of pretty much the entirety of Aizu. So, from Mt Iimori, the 20 soldiers watched on as the battle raged below them. And what they thought they saw was Tsuruga-jo, the castle, engulfed in flames. Now, what they thought was that meant that Aizu had fallen to the imperial forces and that the castle had fallen. Now, this would mean that their fellow soldiers had died, their families had died, and they thought, we need to commit seppuku, pretty much. Now, apparently, according to the sole survivor, who also is the only reason this story has ever been retold, there was actually indecision amongst the group whether or not to commit seppuku, which is ritualistic suicide, or to continue fighting. Now, this story is tragic because they obviously chose the route of seppuku. So the 20 members committed seppuku on the hill with the fire of Aizu burning in the background. Now, what makes this tale really tragic is that it was not the castle that had fell victim to the fire, but the smoke from the fires lit throughout the castle town that made it appear to be alight or engulfed in flames. So at that point, the forces of Aizu were still fighting against the loyalist Imperials. Today, the tale of the Byakkotai is well known among those Japanese who are interested in history. And if you visit the city of Aizu, which I highly recommend, you can visit the graves of the Byakkotai 20 buried at Iimoriyama Hill. And if you venture to Tsuruga-jo, one of the great castles of Japan, there is actually a section dedicated inside to their tragic tale where you can learn more. So, thus ends the first episode and the tragic tale of the Byakkotai. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and please subscribe to the podcast, which will be updated when new episodes are released. Next week's episode will be set in the same time period, but concerning a different group of samurai, which maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but they are very famous in pop culture within Japan and even outside now with the spreading of pop culture. And that is the very famous samurai unit known as the Shinsengumi. So until next time, guys.